Have you ever felt like life was finally calm, like the waters were still, only to be thrown, without warning, into a storm? One moment everything flows effortlessly, like a peaceful river meandering through a valley. The next, you're caught in a whirlwind of chaos, stress, and uncertainty. It's like standing under clear skies, only to be drenched in rain with no shelter in sight. But here's the truth most people overlook: this turbulence is not an interruption of life, it is life. Growth doesn't arrive gently. It storms in, dragging discomfort and unpredictability with it. Yet in the midst of all this, one question quietly lingers: is it possible to remain calm, even when the world around you spins out of control? The answer is not only yes, it's essential. Calmness is not reserved for monks on mountaintops or philosophers in ivory towers. It's not something you either have or you don't. Calmness is a mental skill, a daily discipline, and above all, a choice. And it begins not with the world around us, but with the mind within us. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In those few words lies the foundation of inner peace. Stoicism teaches that true tranquility comes not from controlling every detail of life, but from mastering your response to whatever life brings. Throughout this video, we're going to explore how you can train your mind to stay composed in the face of chaos. These aren't abstract theories or distant ideals, they're practical tools, grounded in experience, forged by those who faced immense trials and emerged stronger. Because real strength isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about learning to stand still inside it. Let's begin. 1. Control your mind, or be controlled by it. Be honest, has your own mind ever felt like your worst enemy? Have you ever had a moment when your thoughts betrayed you? Maybe it was an outburst of anger you couldn't stop, or a spiral of anxious thoughts that left you paralyzed. Or perhaps it was the sinking feeling of regret after reacting impulsively to something trivial. This isn't weakness. It's part of being human. Our minds are incredibly powerful, but also deeply vulnerable. Without discipline, they're like untamed horses, wild, reactive, and prone to panic, anxiety, fear, disappointment, envy. They all have a way of hijacking our thoughts, steering us in directions we didn't choose. So here's the crucial question: do you control your mind, or does it control you? Let's imagine a familiar situation. You're at a party, enjoying yourself, relaxed in the comfort of good company. Everything feels right. And then, it happens. Someone drops a negative remark about you, loud enough for others to hear. Maybe it's a subtle dig. Maybe it's a direct shot. But it hits you unexpectedly. What happens next? If your mind is untrained, a wave of emotions crashes in: offense, embarrassment, rage. Your heart starts racing. Your face heats up. You feel the urgent need to respond, sharply, defensively, maybe even spitefully. Or perhaps you want to leave immediately, humiliated and defeated. But pause. Is that really you, or is that just your mind reacting on autopilot? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." It's a powerful reminder. It's not what happens that defines your emotional state, it's what you tell yourself about what happens. If you decide that the comment was an attack, your emotions will respond accordingly. But if you interpret it as simply noise, a reflection of someone else's state, not your worth, it will slide off you like water off stone. This is not about pretending you don't feel anything. Stoicism does not ask us to become robots. Instead, it teaches us to become masters of our emotions, not their slaves. To control your mind doesn't mean suppressing every feeling. It means choosing your response, rather than being driven by your reaction. Let's return to that party scene. You hear the comment. You feel the sting. But instead of letting your mind sprint toward confrontation, you pause. You breathe. You look at the person, not with anger, but with calm curiosity. You don't flare up. You don't shrink. You stand in your center. Maybe you respond with grace. Maybe you simply smile and move on. Either way, you hold your ground, not out of pride, but out of clarity. Because you understand a truth that many forget: their words only have power if you give it to them. And when you don't react the way they expect, when you remain unmoved by their attempt to provoke, you unsettle them. They anticipated a fight. What they got was composure. And that shakes them more than any sharp retort ever could. This is the essence of inner mastery. Training your mind like this doesn't happen overnight. It's not something you meditate on once and magically embody. It's a process, a path. And it starts in the smallest, everyday moments. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Do you explode in anger? Or take a breath and carry on? A friend disappoints you. Do you lash out? Or take time to understand and reflect? A stranger online mocks your opinion. Do you respond with fury? Or with silence? Each moment becomes an opportunity. A repetition. A rep in the mental gym. Because every time you pause before reacting, every time you breathe instead of explode, every time you observe rather than absorb, you're strengthening your control. And eventually, it becomes who you are. Not someone trying to be calm, but someone who is calm. Not because life got easier, but because your mind got stronger. Remaining calm doesn't mean we feel nothing. It means we've trained our minds to respond with clarity instead of chaos. In the last section, we saw how taking control of your mind can prevent unnecessary suffering. Now let's go deeper. Because mastering your thoughts is only the beginning. What happens when the heat rises, when emotion floods in? Especially anger, too. Anger doesn't solve problems. Let's be clear, controlling your mind is not about becoming cold or emotionless. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about gaining the freedom to feel fully, without being held hostage by every emotional surge. It means no longer being a slave to your impulses. You decide how you respond. You decide how you live, because if you don't control your mind will control you. Take anger, for example. It's one of the most powerful emotions we experience, and one of the most dangerous when left unchecked. Anger is natural, we all feel it. But when we allow it to take the wheel, we lose our ability to think clearly, and more importantly, to act wisely. At first, it might feel like taking control. Yelling, slamming a door, giving someone a piece of your mind. You feel like you're reclaiming your power. But in reality, you're handing it away. You're not solving the problem, you're feeding it. Let's imagine a familiar scene. You're driving to work. Mind focused. Music playing softly. Traffic is moving steadily. And then, out of nowhere, a car swerves right in front of you. No signal. No warning. You slam the brakes. Heart pounding. Anger exploding in your chest. You've been wronged. You've been disrespected. You want to react. Maybe you hit the horn. Maybe you shout behind the windshield, even though no one can hear you. Maybe you speed up to teach them a lesson. But stop for a second and ask yourself, does this reaction fix anything? Does chasing them down or shouting in frustration change what happened? Or does it simply drag you deeper into chaos? If you let anger lead the way, the outcome could be far worse. You might cause an accident. You might provoke someone into road rage. And most of all, you've just traded your peace for a moment of rage. That's a high price to pay. The Stoics remind us, we cannot control other people. We can't predict what they'll say, how they'll act, or what chaos they'll bring. But we can always control our own response. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That truth is a shield. When something, or someone, triggers you, don't just react. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this really worth losing my peace over? 9 times out of 10. The answer is no. Anger, in itself, is not evil. It's a messenger. A signal that something inside you feels violated, hurt, disrespected, or wronged. But if you treat that signal like a command, you'll explode. If you treat it like a mirror, you'll understand. Why does this bother me so much? Why am I giving this person so much power over me? When someone hurts you, do you have to strike back? When injustice appears, do you have to yell? Or can you find a wiser, more effective way to respond? This is the Stoic mindset. No matter how unreasonable people may act, no matter how unfair life seems, your greatest strength lies in your ability to choose your reaction. Someone can insult you, but you decide whether that insult sticks or slides off. There's a common myth in society that silence is weakness, and that strong people always react loudly and forcefully. But in truth, the one who can stay calm while others rage is the one in control, because anyone can explode. It takes no effort to scream, but it takes real discipline, true inner strength, to stand still in the storm and not be moved. When someone loses their temper instantly, it doesn't show strength. It reveals a lack of control. Like a house with no foundation, they collapse under pressure. But the one who remains composed, that person commands the room, without ever raising their voice. And that leads us to a deeper insight. Because calmness isn't just an emotional tactic, it's a superpower. 3. Calmness is not weakness, it's strength. Our culture tends to glorify loudness. In meetings, the one who speaks most often is seen as the leader. In arguments, the person who shouts the loudest is mistaken for the one who's winning. But look closely. Does loudness equal clarity? Does anger equal power? True power doesn't need to shout. True strength doesn't need to be seen. The strongest person in the room is often the one who listens carefully, speaks deliberately, and doesn't react to every provocation. When someone raises their voice at you, your instinct might be to raise yours back, to meet fire with fire. But what does that achieve? Does it resolve the issue, or simply escalate the tension? Most times, it just turns a small conflict into a full-blown confrontation. And now, both people are lost in emotion. No one is thinking. No one is solving anything. And you've handed over your peace to someone who didn't earn it. Instead, choose a higher path. Remain calm, not because you're passive, but because you're strategic. Not because you're weak, but because you're in control. A calm response disarms aggression. A composed presence unsettles those who try to provoke. It creates space for reason to return. It allows you to stay in charge of yourself. This is what Stoicism teaches us: not to feel less, but to live more wisely. Not to avoid emotion, but to master it. Because in the end, your greatest weapon is not your voice, it's your ability to remain steady when others are falling apart. And in the next section, we'll explore exactly why that matters more than ever. True strength doesn't come from how loudly you respond, but from how calmly you hold your ground. In the last section, we uncovered how calmness is not a sign of weakness, but a mark of mastery. Now, let's take that understanding one step further, into the heat of real-life conflict, where your reaction speaks louder than your words. 4. Don't let others control your emotions. One of the most overlooked superpowers you can develop is this: emotional independence. The ability to remain steady regardless of what others say or do. To not let someone's tone, behavior, or attitude hijack your inner peace. Because once someone can pull your strings with a glance or a comment, they own your mood. And that's not power, it's vulnerability. Let's look at a common scenario. You're in an important meeting. The stakes are high. Everyone is focused. Suddenly, a colleague, perhaps out of frustration, ego, or rivalry, interrupts you harshly, openly dismissing your opinion. The room falls silent. All eyes are on you. The tension thickens. Every second stretches. Now, you stand at a crossroads. Option 1, fire back. Defend your view in the same harsh tone. Make it personal. Raise the stakes. Option 2, pause. Observe. Breathe. And respond with composure, calm, but confident. Assertive, yet respectful. Both are choices, but only one strengthens your position. If you go with the first, what happens? You might feel momentarily satisfied, but the energy in the room shifts. Conflict takes center stage. People stop thinking about solutions and start reacting to the clash. But if you choose the second, if you stay calm, you immediately shift the dynamic. Your self-control speaks volumes. The room respects you, not just for what you said, but how you said it. Your tone becomes your message. Your calmness becomes your authority. And this isn't just theory, it's history. One of the most powerful demonstrations of calmness in the face of oppression comes from Mahatma Gandhi. Under the harsh rule of the British Empire, Gandhi didn't resort to violence or angry protests. Instead, he chose a path of non-violence, ahimsa, and truth, satyagraha. A defining moment? The Salt March of 1930. Gandhi led a 380-kilometer walk to protest the unjust British tax on salt. He and his followers were unarmed. They did not provoke violence. They simply walked, peacefully, deliberately, and yet, their quiet determination shook an empire. The British reacted with aggression. But Gandhi stood composed. His calmness, not his rage, became the force that moved millions. He proved a timeless truth: real power is not in brute force, but in the ability to remain composed under pressure. He showed the world that strength isn't about overpowering others, it's about mastering yourself. Because here's the truth many never learn: those who lose their temper fastest are often the ones with the least control. When someone shouts, threatens, or overreacts, they may seem dominant. But look deeper, it often comes from insecurity, fear, or frustration. They can't manage their own emotions, so they try to manage others through intimidation. But here's your advantage: when you don't react as expected, you take their power away. Stay calm, and you not only maintain control, you expose the situation for what it truly is. You reveal who is driven by ego and who is guided by wisdom. Remaining calm isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's about commanding respect. It's about showing the world that you are not easily shaken. That you do not need to shout to be heard. That you do not need to fight to be strong. Because when you can regulate your own emotions, when you choose not to be manipulated by anger or baited by disrespect, you are already leading. You are already winning. Self-control isn't a soft skill. It's a superior one. It tells others, and yourself, that no one can decide how you feel except you. And when you reach that point, you're untouchable. No one can steal your peace. No one can dictate your mood. And no one can control your life but you. The truly strong don't seek validation through volume. They don't try to dominate with aggression. They lead through presence. Through silence, through steady, consistent action. And the best part? Once you master yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, no one can manipulate you again. You become grounded, anchored, and unshakable. True strength isn't what happens around you, it's what happens within you. And when you remain calm, composed, and focused, even as chaos swirls around you, you've already won the battle. Long before it ever began. 5. Life is unfair, but that doesn't matter. Let's face it. Life doesn't always reward effort. You might pour your heart into a project, go the extra mile, stay late, show up early, and still be overlooked. You might treat people with kindness, only to be betrayed. You might follow every rule, and still fall behind someone who didn't. It's frustrating. It's painful. And it feels like a punch to the gut. But here's a crucial truth. Life is not fair. And Stoicism doesn't sugarcoat that. It teaches us something far more powerful. You can't change the world to match your expectations, but you can change how you respond to it. And in that shift, you reclaim your power. Because if you spend your energy resenting injustice, you'll constantly live in frustration. But if you accept it, if you recognize that unfairness is part of the game, you can stop fighting it and start playing smarter. It's not resignation, it's liberation. You stop asking why me, and start asking what now. You stop wishing things were different, and start changing what you can control. your mindset, your response, your focus. We'll dive deeper into this in the next section, with a story that defies all odds and proves just how powerful the human spirit can be. Even in the face of extreme misfortune, we've seen how life's unfairness doesn't have to define us. Now, let's look at someone who proves this with every breath he takes. Because sometimes, the most powerful examples come from those who have faced the harshest realities, and refused to be broken by them. At one point in his life, Nick Vujicic was consumed by despair, born without arms or legs. His early years were filled with insecurity, frustration, and deep helplessness. He couldn't understand why he had to suffer such a cruel fate. There was a time when the pain became so unbearable. He seriously considered ending his life, but then, a shift happened. He came to a life-altering realization: if he couldn't change his circumstances, he could still change how he responded to them. That moment changed everything. Despite having no limbs, Nick taught himself how to brush his teeth, type, swim, and even play soccer using only his small torso. Bit by bit, he reclaimed control, not over the external world, but over his own life. Eventually, he not only learned to live independently, but also became a world-renowned motivational speaker, inspiring millions around the globe. Nick possesses no arms, no legs, yet he holds a strength far greater than many able-bodied individuals ever achieve, an unbreakable spirit. He is a living embodiment of Stoic philosophy. His life reminds us that while we cannot control every situation, we can always control our attitude, our focus, and our will. This is the core of Stoicism. Imagine standing in the middle of a violent storm. You can shake your fist at the sky, curse the wind and the rain, or you can seek shelter and use the moment to reflect, to grow, to find inner steadiness. Those who live in constant resentment are always victims of their circumstances. They're dragged by life instead of steering their own course. But those who live with a Stoic mindset, they rise above. They don't allow external events to defeat them, because they've already mastered the battlefield within. So how can we apply this mindset in our own lives? Whenever you feel mistreated, overlooked, or disrespected, pause and ask yourself, will reacting with anger or bitterness change anything? If the answer is no, then why waste your precious energy? Instead, redirect that energy into something you can control. Work on your craft, sharpen your skills, strengthen your emotional resilience. The reality is clear: life won't always be fair. But that truth doesn't matter nearly as much as how you choose to respond. Will you let injustice define you, or will you let it refine you? Before we dive into the next part of this journey, can I ask you a small favor? If you found this message meaningful so far, and it's helped you reflect, even just a little, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Why? Because when you like and subscribe, you're telling YouTube that this content matters, and it helps spread these empowering messages to more people who may be quietly struggling, just like you were. Together, we can create a ripple of growth, strength, and clarity across the world. Thank you for being here on this journey with us. Now, take a moment to reflect. Think about a recent situation where you lost control. Maybe someone insulted you. Maybe your patience snapped during a stressful day. Did the situation truly overpower you, or was it a choice made in the heat of the moment? Let's explore this idea in more depth. 6. Losing control is a choice. Most of us grow up believing that our emotions are automatic, that we lose control because of other people's behavior, or because life throws us off balance. But if you stop and look deeper, the truth is more uncomfortable, and more liberating. We don't lose control because of others. We lose control because, in that moment, we choose to. Imagine this everyday scenario. You're standing in line at the supermarket. The queue is long. You're tired. And then, someone boldly cuts in front of you, pretending not to notice. Instantly, anger rises in your chest. Your heartbeat quickens. Your fists tighten. You're ready to call them out. maybe even shout. But then, a small thought breaks through the storm: I can't control their behavior, but I can control mine. At that crossroads, you have a choice. Let the anger drive your actions. Or breathe, stay composed, and respond with dignity. Maybe you calmly point it out, or maybe you let it go entirely. Either way, the key is that you're in charge, not your emotions. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "Remember, it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe that you are being harmed." Let that sink in. No one can make you feel humiliated unless you agree with their judgment. No one can steal your peace unless you hand it over. No one can drag you into chaos unless you walk in willingly. Think of someone you deeply respect, a former mentor, a teacher, a calm friend. Have you noticed how they stay steady even under pressure? How they smile even when being criticized? It's not because they never feel anger or hurt. It's because they've understood something most people haven't. Losing control is always a choice, and they've made their choice over and over again. Let me end with a short but powerful story. One day, during rush hour on a packed commuter train, a young man accidentally stepped on an elderly man's foot. Realizing what he'd done, the young man immediately turned and apologized. The old man? He simply looked up from his book, gave a small nod, and continued reading. No drama, no shouting, no grudge. Another passenger, observing this moment, was stunned. "How can you be so calm after being stepped on?" he asked. The old man smiled and replied, "Why should I give away my peace over a mistake that's already been acknowledged?" That's what Stoicism looks like in action. In the last section, we saw how losing control is not something forced upon us, it's something we allow. Now, let's continue with a powerful story that reminds us why mastering our emotions isn't just wisdom, it's freedom. After witnessing the calm old man who was accidentally stepped on in a crowded train, another passenger couldn't hold back his curiosity. He leaned over and asked, "Why aren't you upset? If it were me, I would have scolded him immediately." The old man simply smiled and replied, "He didn't do it on purpose. And I don't want to waste my time being angry. My anger won't take away the pain in my foot, it would only disturb my mind." That response holds a quiet kind of brilliance. What can we learn from it? Most people grow up believing that they must react, especially when faced with something unpleasant or disrespectful. They believe that anger, frustration, and anxiety are automatic responses, something they cannot avoid. But Stoicism teaches us a liberating truth. Emotions are not caused by the events themselves, but by how we interpret those events. Two people can experience the same situation and respond in completely different ways. One person sees someone cutting in line and erupts in fury, seeing it as a personal insult. Another sees it as a simple test of patience and lets it go without a second thought. One person takes criticism as a deep wound to their self-esteem. Another views it as an opportunity for growth, a moment to reflect and improve. So, how do we train our minds to remain composed instead of losing control? First, recognize that you always have a choice. When a strong emotion starts to rise, whether it's irritation, sadness, or anger, pause for just a moment and ask yourself, will this reaction help me? If the answer is no, then what's the point of giving your energy to it? Remember, silence often carries more weight than any comeback. A calm expression unsettles people more than a dozen defensive words. It demonstrates power, not over them, but over yourself. Second, practice controlling your thoughts. The mind often runs wild when left unchecked. When you catch it getting swept up in anger or spiraling in anxiety, bring it back. Remind yourself of the core Stoic principle: I cannot control others, I can only control myself. This doesn't mean that you must accept all wrongdoing or remain passive when treated unfairly. It means learning how to respond with clarity and purpose, rather than being swept away by impulse. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic, it's the mind on autopilot. Responding is intentional, it's the mind in control. Finally, remember this truth. True strength isn't about being loud, aggressive, or intimidating. It's about staying steady, especially when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. When you learn to keep your peace in moments of chaos, you gain a kind of power that no one can take away. This is one of the foundational lessons of Stoicism. You cannot control the outside world, but you can always control how you perceive it. And from that perception, you decide whether to lose control, or to remain rooted. 7. Don't get stuck in the past or the future. Have you ever caught yourself replaying a past mistake over and over in your mind? Or felt anxious about something that hasn't even happened yet? It's like being trapped between two invisible walls: the past, which you can't change, and the future, which hasn't arrived. Many people live in this mental prison, not truly experiencing the moment they're in. They exist in a fog of regret and worry, constantly pulled backward or pushed forward, but rarely standing still. If you want to train your mind to stay calm in any situation, you must first learn to break free from this exhausting pattern. One of the most important teachings of Stoicism is this: live fully in the present, because that is the only moment you ever truly own. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and revered Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Remember that man lives only in the present. In this fleeting instant, all the rest of his life is either past and gone, or not yet revealed." This is more than ancient wisdom, it's a practical reminder. We torment ourselves with things we can no longer influence, the words we wish we didn't say, the chances we didn't take. And then we worry about things that haven't happened. What if I fail? What if things go wrong? But in both cases, we sacrifice the only thing we can actually use, this moment. When the mind is stuck in the past, we're powerless. When it races into the future, we're overwhelmed. But when we anchor ourselves in the present, we reclaim control. So, how do we strengthen this ability? The answer lies in a simple, ancient tool: mindfulness. Stoic philosophers didn't call it by that name, but they practiced it daily. It doesn't require hours of meditation or detaching from the world. It simply means becoming conscious of what you're doing right now. Focus on your breath. Notice the sensations in your body. Become aware of your surroundings. Each time your mind starts drifting, gently guide it back to the now. There's a powerful example from the world of sports. Tennis champion Novak Djokovic once confessed that earlier in his career, he often obsessed over past mistakes or panicked about future outcomes. These distractions made him lose focus at crucial moments in his matches. But something shifted when he learned to approach each point, each moment, with full attention. He stopped letting the past haunt him. He stopped fearing what might happen next. Instead, he trained himself to stay grounded in each shot, each breath, each rally. That change didn't just improve his performance, it transformed his mindset. He became emotionally controlled, intensely focused, and mentally unshakable. And it's this shift, the decision to live fully in the present, that helped him rise to the top, match after match. In the same way, you don't need to be a world-class athlete to apply this lesson. Every present moment is an opportunity to return to your center. And the more often you practice this, the more naturally calmness becomes your default, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. In the previous section, we reflected on the importance of staying grounded in the present. Champions like Novak Djokovic have shown that mastering your focus in each moment, regardless of past mistakes or future fears, is the real key to success. But this wisdom extends far beyond sports. In fact, it becomes even more vital when life gets messy, unpredictable, and emotionally charged. 8. Life is chaotic, but calmness lies within you. Life doesn't follow a script. Just when you think you have things under control, everything can change in the blink of an eye. You might wake up feeling motivated, ready to have a productive day, and then suddenly, a harsh text, an argument with a loved one, or some unexpected bad news, throws your whole rhythm into disarray. Chaos is part of the world's design. But here's the truth, even when you can't control what happens around you, you can always control what happens within you. Have you ever noticed how the calmest person in the room seems to hold the most power? When everyone else is panicking, when tempers flare and nerves snap, the person who remains still, who breathes deeply and chooses their words carefully, becomes the anchor in the storm. You don't have power over external events, but you have total control over your reactions. When this truth really sinks in, you'll realize something profound: silence is not weakness. Stillness is not passivity. On the contrary, it's a form of strength that only the disciplined possess. Let's take a familiar situation. You're driving on a congested road. Another driver suddenly swerves into your lane, cutting you off. You slam the brakes. Your heart jumps. Instinct screams, honk the horn, yell, curse. Let that person know how wrong they were. But take a moment and ask yourself, will this reaction change what just happened? Will it make you feel better, or worse? Now imagine choosing a different path. You take a breath. You grip the steering wheel calmly. You decide that your peace is more valuable than a moment of rage. You continue your drive, not because the other driver deserved grace, but because you deserve peace. That small decision, in a seemingly unimportant moment, is powerful, because it's not just about road rage. It's about building a habit of emotional discipline. Every day, life gives us situations like this. Someone says something offensive. A project you worked hard on gets cancelled. A friend breaks your trust. You can't stop these things from happening, but you can choose not to be pulled into emotional chaos. When you let your emotions explode uncontrollably, you're surrendering your power. You're letting the outside world dictate your inner state. But when you stay calm, you reclaim control. You choose your response. And that's where true strength lies. Often, when people are angry, they want you to match their energy. When someone's anxious, they hope you'll spiral with them. But if you remain calm, you refuse to participate in their emotional storm. And that changes everything. Calmness is not indifference, it's inner mastery. Some people misunderstand calmness as weakness, or even avoidance. But true calmness is something else entirely. It's not turning your back on reality, it's standing tall in the middle of it without losing your balance. Imagine a heated family argument. Someone says something sharp and unfair. Your pulse races. Your mind instantly begins crafting the perfect rebuttal. You feel the urge to speak up, loudly, forcefully, but instead, you pause, you take a breath. You look at the situation clearly, and you realize, silence, in this moment, may be more powerful than any clever comeback. When you don't react the way others expect, something interesting happens. They're left alone with their own words. Often, they begin to reflect. Or at the very least, they can no longer use you as a spark for further conflict. The real victory isn't in who gets the last word, it's in who stays composed the longest. Life will constantly challenge you. You'll face moments that are unfair, frustrating, and deeply emotional, but you always have a choice. Let the storm sweep you away, or become the one who stands still while others are tossed around. Because your circumstances do not define you, your reactions do. There is great strength in remaining silent when provoked. There is even greater strength in responding with calmness when insulted. When you learn to master your emotions, you don't just protect your peace, you shape your future. So when chaos strikes, when tempers rise, when everything around you feels unstable, ask yourself, will I be controlled by the storm? Or will I stand firm in the silence of strength? That answer, and the power that comes with it, lies within you. 9. Don't let circumstances define you. Life is a constant current. Sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming. And for many of us, the story begins not in comfort, but in hardship. Maybe you were born into adversity. Maybe you grew up facing challenges that others didn't. Maybe the weight of your past feels too heavy to ever rise above. In those dark moments, One question always lingers: can I change my destiny? Stoicism offers a clear answer, one that we'll explore in the next section. Previously, we explored how life's chaos doesn't have to control us. It's not what happens around us that defines us, it's how we respond from within. Now let's take that deeper, as we look at how your identity is never written by your circumstances, but by the choices you make in response to them. 10. Don't let circumstances define you. It's easy to believe that our current situation says everything about who we are. But the truth is this: circumstances are not your identity, they are just a backdrop. Imagine a young boy born into poverty. From a young age, he hears whispers around him: he'll never become anything. He's stuck where he is. Society sees him with pity. Teachers lower their expectations. Strangers speak to him like he's already lost. Even he begins to believe the story written for him. He tells himself that dreaming is a luxury for others, that success belongs to those born into better lives. But then, something changes. One day, he realizes a powerful truth: circumstances are temporary. They are not a life sentence. If he keeps believing the narrative that others have created for him, he'll never break free. If he keeps defining himself by what he lacks, he'll never discover what he's capable of. And so, he decides to change. Bit by bit, he begins his transformation. He reads. He trains. He looks for opportunities, even small ones. He makes mistakes. He learns. And above all, he refuses to stop. This is the spirit of Stoicism in action. We cannot choose the environment we're born into. We cannot always control what life throws at us. But we can always control one thing: how we respond. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is not just a quote, it's a framework for living. Your attitude toward your struggles defines who you become, not the struggle itself. Two people can face the same hardship, one crumbles, the other rises. What makes the difference? Their mindset. When life tests you, you have two choices: let your circumstances define you, or define yourself through how you rise above them. People who let circumstances control them often feel powerless. They blame luck, fate, or their past. They convince themselves that change is impossible. But those who understand Stoicism take a different approach. They acknowledge reality, but they don't let it shape their identity. They don't wallow in complaints, they search for solutions. They turn their attention inward, not outward. Let's go back to that boy. His change didn't come from some miracle. It wasn't luck or outside rescue. It was a mindset shift. He decided, I am not my circumstances. I am not my poverty. I can become more, if I persist. He saw that the limitations placed on him were only powerful if he chose to believe in them. And so, brick by brick, day by day, he built a new future. Not because it was easy, but because he refused to accept the identity others assigned to him. Eventually, he succeeded, in his own way, on his own terms. You may find yourself in a tough situation today. Perhaps you were born into hardship. Maybe you're dealing with pain, betrayal, or failure. But let me remind you, you are not what you're going through. You are the person who faces it. Staying calm in the face of adversity doesn't mean you're unaffected. It means you're rooted in something deeper. When people try to label you, when the world whispers, you can't change, that's the moment to be silent. To stand tall. To say without speaking, I am not defined by what happens to me. I define myself through how I respond. And when you carry that mindset, when you keep your composure, when you stay grounded, nothing can truly shake you. Calmness is not something you're born with. It's not a personality trait. It's a skill, a discipline, something cultivated every day, like a muscle. The great Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, all pointed to the same truth. It is not our external world that creates inner peace. but the thoughts we hold within. The moment you learn to regulate your response is the moment you stop being ruled by the world around you. A calm mind, a quiet strength, the ability to stand firm when the winds of life try to push you down. That is Stoicism. That is power. And what about you, in your daily life? Have you ever applied Stoic calmness? Were there moments when staying calm helped you navigate a challenge, or moments when you struggled to hold your composure? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share your experience in the comments below. And if this video has brought you any value, any clarity or peace, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who might need it, and subscribing to the channel. There's so much more to explore in Stoicism: deeper lessons, timeless insights, and practical tools for living with strength and serenity. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and until next time, stay calm, stay strong, stay free.